This is Bill Prater, and welcome to our weekly Business Mastery Insights show. Our mission is to provide you with timely, provocative, and actionable resources that inspire, promote, and accelerate your quest for business excellence. Today's episode is how to reach every long-term business goal. And so what we're going to do agenda-wise is first, I'm going to talk about the various kinds of goals that we have. Second, we're going to talk specifically about long-term goals. We'll talk about the notion of top to bottom alignment from the biggest type of goal down to daily action steps. Then we'll get into a template or a worksheet that I've prepared over the years that help people in the quest that they have to create actionable size bits that they can execute on a flawless basis. Then after I finish that, we'll have some questions and answers. I'll shut down the live stream. All of you out there on the live stream will then be able to come back and watch it at your leisure sometime in the future. And then we'll spend the rest of the show with our CEO Alliance members in a workshop environment. If you're interested in joining the CEO Alliance, just go to ceoalliance.vip and you'll have an opportunity to be one of our members. So let's get started. What I want to do is tee up my tablet so we can share a screen. Here we go. Should have had this done before we started, but it didn't. So here we are. Okay, so once again, the agenda, types of goals, long-term goals, talk about alignment. Then we will get into specifically the template itself and on to Q&A and then our workshop. So types of goals. In my experience, there's a lot of confusion about the word goals because it ranges from what I'll call wishes and hopes and dreams all the way to more specific goals that have some sort of a time frame associated with them. Most of the time, personal goals, things like losing X amount of weight or learning, training to be a firefighter or getting your PhD in economics or something on that order, most of those kind of goals don't necessarily have time associated with them, but most business-oriented goals do, or at least most business-oriented goals should. And so the first thing I want to kind of explain is this whole concept of what is a long-term goal. So think about a long-term goal. And in simple terms, to me, anything is long-term if it's greater than what I'll call the accountability period. Accountability. So if it's longer than that time, and in most businesses, anything longer for accountability purposes, anything longer than 1 month is too long. Generally, an entire business can be operated on a monthly basis. One of the primary reasons for that is one of the critical pieces of managing any sort of a company is the financial resources that are available. And typically those become available on a monthly basis. Hence, people tend to think about month to month to month and then annually. Now, on the other hand, if you happen to be running in a department, or you're the project manager for an initiative, those accountability periods need to be more frequently than a overall business accountability period. Sometimes, particularly in a project has a start and a stop. They have a life. And so a project could be 3 months long or 3 years long. But at the end of the project, let's say building a building, the building is completed and that project is over. But during the construction of the building, we need to make sure that we're accountable for the commitments that are made along the way. If you're running a department in a company, most of those need to be managed from an accountability standpoint, something on the order of weekly. So in that case, a long-term goal is actually one that's longer than a week. If you're a frontline superintendent, like you're running a shift in a manufacturing plant, then you're likely to be having daily accountability meetings. So if the work is frontline, accountability is very fast, daily. If you're running a department or a project, typically accountability is 1 week long. And if you're running an entire company, typically accountability would be 1 month long. It all has to do, if you will, with the frequency of the typical goals that take place within that particular business organization. So let's move on to the next thing I really wanted to talk about, and that is this whole notion of what is alignment. Now, alignment would look like this. If you walk into, and I do this often, walk into any sort of a business, most of the time you're going to see this happening all over the building, if you will, what I'll call work, also known as activities. Don't need that. Activities or actions or frenzy. Unfortunately, in most organizations, all this work really doesn't get much done. You know, that's why in any industry, companies are organized in a bell-shaped fashion. The vast majority of the companies are in the middle of the bell curve, where the average performers lie. When you look at an average performing company, you're going to see a lot of frenzy, a lot of work, a lot of activity, and they're not getting out of the middle. However, if you look at the companies that are performing at the highest possible level, then the activity that's going on is more directly connected to what the overall purpose or vision of the organization is. The more high performing, the more elite the organization, the closer to the top of the industry niche the company is, the more likely the activity is aligned with higher order bits. The more average the company is, the more likely the activity is disorganized, not aligned, etc. It actually looks calmer in a well-organized organization. That's why I term the idea of that as a fine-tuned, well-oiled, smooth-running machine. It's one that's effortlessly operating. In the athletic environment, oftentimes people think of an athlete that's in that area of being in the zone or being in the flow, when things seem to happen at a very high level, but the athlete herself doesn't appear to be doing anything extra. It's counterintuitive to a lot of people, frankly, the vast majority of people. That's why the vast majority of everything is in the average, in the middle someplace. So let's talk about how to fix that. So how do you go about fixing that? Well, first step is you want to connect the work to goals, which I call commitments. I'll get to why I do that in a minute, but you want to connect the work to commitments. And these commitments here are due at accountability time. Everybody that's involved with me runs what's called a SET meeting, stands for Strategic Execution Team meeting. That's where accountability takes place. So when all of the work is connected to commitments made by the members of the SET team, the probability is very high that the performance level would be such that an organization running SET meetings is going to be in the upper 5% of their industry, their respective industry niche, if you will. So those are commitments. The next level up is what I'll call goals. And these goals are greater, by definition, greater than the accountability interval. And I already talked about monthly, weekly, daily. I've actually seen people do them twice a month or something like that. That's not vital. The key is getting this alignment squared away. Now, at the very high top, if you will, top end of this whole thing is the vision. People following the business mastery system will convert that into an intention, meaning that it is a vision or a dream that's been reduced down into something that somebody can literally say, I am going to do the following. So that vision gets coalesced into something that's stronger and more powerful. So that's the top. So what we're trying to do is, and now I want to use these colors. I want to connect the work to the long-term intention. That's the objective. Connect all of the work going on in our organization to the intention of the organization. So that's what we're after. How do we get that done? Well, the first thing we need is a purpose. Not the first thing, the second thing below the vision, a purpose, which is, if you will, a reason for the organization's existence. It's the reason for its existence. Sometimes people use the term mission statement. I'm okay with that. But the purpose is the reason for something's existence. So what's the purpose of the brand new website initiative? The purpose would be to build a website that's going to serve our employees, our vendors, our customers. That would be the purpose for the website initiative. So what's the purpose for the marketing department? The marketing department's purpose might be something like to establish a consistent messaging system which attracts the right vendors, employees, and customers and clients to our organization. That would be an example of a mission or a purpose for the marketing department. The next area that we need to connect would be strategy. Strategy. So strategy is what we're going to do. We are going to do the following. It doesn't tell us how we're going to go about doing it. How, I love the fact that my little button keeps changing. How we're going to do it, that's reserved for our game plan. In our game plan, we're going to delineate the how. Some people call this tactics. I'm okay with that. So the way we connect our activity, day-to-day activity, together with our intention is through first connecting it to our commitments right here, which are connected to our longer term goals right here, connected to our annual game plan, connected to our 3, 4, 5-year strategy, connected to our overall purpose or mission, connected to our intentions. So that's this whole notion of alignment top to bottom. But what we want to talk about now is we want to talk about this whole idea of long-term goals. And that is, as we remember, those are defined as goals which are greater than the accountability period. So anything longer than, let's use a business from now on out, anything longer than a month is going to fall into the area of a long-term goal. So let's move on to our template. So what that's going to look like. Now I've decided, I've built these over the years, and I've decided the best way to teach you about a long-term template is to draw it out here with my pen and then let you convert it. Generally speaking, I find something like Google Sheets or Google Doc or the equivalent on the Mac or Windows platforms to do this sort of work. But what we're talking about is having, if you will, a goal, And the goal, the form of a goal is simply, I will, verb, some sort of a verb to some sort of a vital driver. So I will increase the number of leads. I will decrease the amount of errors. I will upgrade our average score on Yelp from 4 to 5 to 4.5. All of those sorts of things would be a goal. Now, the due date over here, the date when it's due, by definition, is going to be greater than, if you will, next month. Now, today happens to be the 30th of December. So let's say that with this goal we're talking about here is going to be greater than due by this time in January. So it's a February goal, it's a 2022 goal or something like that. So let's just say, for our purposes, this is due 12/31/22. That would definitely be a long-term goal. The problem is that when we have goals like that, they're not connected well enough to our hierarchy here. They're not connected well enough because we are not having any accountability, if you will. We won't know if this is done until 12/31/22. So what happens in that environment with a long-term goal left in the hands of almost anybody is a lot of work might take place, but your probability of finishing the long-term goal is low. That's why so many organizations, so many people have a long list of long-term goals, they call them, but they never get done. And the reason is they don't have a system like the one you're learning right here. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to recognize that this goal here is going to exist out here in this space called annual. Next thing in here would be quarterly. Next would be monthly. Then we're going into weekly. So we already have our annual. Now, if the goal, for example, were due at the end of the first quarter, we would be putting this goal right here we wrote. If that date was the end of the first quarter, we would be entering that goal right there in the first quarter. That's where it would go. But this particular case, we have an annual goal. An annual goal. And let's just say what we're going to do is we're going to reduce or increase our Yelp score to 4.6. 4.6 out of 5. And we're currently at, let's say, we're going to go from 3.8 to 4.6. So I'm going to increase Yelp score from 3.8 to 4.6 over the next year. So that's a longer term goal. So what we need to do next is we need to get this in a position so that the work we're going to be doing is connected to this 4.6 objective. So how do we get that done? So best way to think about this is to think of the worksheet enabling you to have, if you will, second, third quarter next year, fourth would be the end of the year. Now, we don't want to do all this work. We're not trying to worry about the fourth quarter next year. We're really only trying to worry about the first quarter, based on the fact we're now at the end of December. So this is the quarter we're working on right here. That one right there. So we don't know, but I'm going to be bold and say by the end of the first quarter, I'm going to increase this score to 4.0. 4.0. Okay, now I've got a 1 year goal reduced down to a quarterly goal. We don't, as a practical matter, need even have these other ones on this piece of paper. That's why one of the reasons I wanted to draw it out. Now, next, though, we do have 3 months in the first quarter. We've got January, February, and March. January, February, March in the first quarter. Okay, good. So January, we're now at 3.8. So let's say I'm going to barely be able to get this thing up. I'm going to go 3.85, 3.9, 3.95. Okay, cool. Now we've got effectively our goals broken down on a month-to-month basis. We're in an entire company, so this month right here also is our set meeting, aka accountability meeting. So we could then have a goal for January that says, my goal between now and the next set meeting is to increase our average Yelp score from 3.8 to 3.85 in January. So that would be something I'm doing. Now, we've got to do some things. And what we're going to do is we're going to now we've got 4 weeks sitting over here, generally. I think it's 4, maybe it could be 5, but roughly 4 or 5 weeks over here in January. Week 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, there's calendars that'll show you the actual numbers for various weeks. Now, what we want to do here is we've made this commitment. So we've made this commitment right here to our peers. And now we got to go and do this stuff right here. We got to work on this. Work. Activities. Action. Not frenzy. So that's what we're going to do. And so this is ourselves, but without anybody else talking to us. And what we're going to do is the first week I'm going to, and I'm just inventing this stuff, I'm going to research the Yelp, and let's call it method. How in the world, what do they do? I'm going to find this out. Second, what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine the Yelp scores of competitors. And I'm gonna call it A. And then also in the second week of January, I'm going to look at number one. And then in the third week, man, that's a long time out. I'm not sure I know what I'm going to do in the third week. So I'm going to leave those blank. But what I know now is that I'm going to be doing something in the first week of January. I'm going to be researching the Yelp method, which I know is connected directly to my January goal, which I know is connected to my quarterly goal, which I know is connected to my annual goal. Man, that means that I've checked this box, in that box, in that box, and I can feel comfortable that if my boss, Harriet, walks up to me and says, "Hey, Billy, what are you doing?" And I'll say, "I'm working on increasing our Yelp score from this point to that point. And specifically this week, I'm looking at the way Yelp figures all this stuff out." Well, good for you, Billy. And off she goes. Versus coming up with some lame brain excuse for how I'm currently spinning my wheels, because I don't have a clue what anything to do with a goal is. I haven't made any commitments to anybody, and I know I'm working for an average, ordinary business that's never going to be at the top of their heap. So that is the kind of worksheet we would use. Now let's go through and do this one more time. So I'm going to erase all this stuff, take it all off. There's a simpler way probably than that, and that would be this. And it didn't work for some reason. It's interesting. Why did that work? Yeah, that worked better. All right, so I'm going to erase the rest. All right, so let's just do another one. So we get the idea. So we've got our little template, and we know that what a goal looks like. We know that it's going to be I will, some verb, and we know that it's going to be do sometime. So we got a goal. I will. So let's go to something in an entirely different space, not in this, if you will, hypothetical restaurant or whatever we own that we need to worry about Yelp scores. And let's go with something like what we're going to do. Let's go back to that website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild our website by, let's say I'm going to do that by June 22. Okay, cool. So we don't have to worry about annual because this goal that we just came up with is actually due in the second quarter. So all we have to worry about is 2 quarters here. So quarter 2, second quarter, we're going to have a finished website. And by quarter 1, we're going to have it designed and wireframed. Okay, cool. That sounds like a decent things to do. And so now we're going to worry about, again, January, February, and March, and looking at it from a scaled down version. We've got our first quarter that is also going to drive 3 potential commitments for the for the 3 accountability meetings. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm just going to come up with something simple, and I'm going to collect, let's say the CEO's input. And yeah, maybe I'm actually going to have 2 goals in January about this. I'm going to go back and change this. Well, here I'm going to change my January to another January goal. And in addition to CEO's input, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape the best of the competition. I'm going to go through and look at what they're doing. So I got 2 goals. Oh, cool. Geez, I'm already ready to commit to 2 things. Now, what we're going to do now, because we've got 2 goals in January, we're going to have 5 weeks of work, and we're just going to have a list of potential things we're going to be doing. There's no reason really to go too deep, because if you think about it, most things are happening activity-wise on a daily basis. So to me, doing a week's worth or maybe 10 days worth is fine. When we get these crossed off our action list, we can then start going into the other months. So that would be a quick overview of our long-term goal action template, designed to convert a goal that's longer than our set meeting, our accountability cycle, into, for me personally, 2 things. One, it connects them to the commitments I'm going to be making in my set meeting, and it gives me a personal list of things that I'm going to be doing in order to deliver on my commitments. So I know, as a result of doing that, that I have in fact connected my activities day to day to the commitments I make for January, to the long-term goal, which I'm responsible for, which is called delivering a new website. Okay, so we're right about where I wanted to be. And what we're going to do now is we're going to deal with any questions that we may have. After the questions, we're going to break down the stream, and then we're going to go into our own private workshop for the members of the CEO Alliance. So, stop, Marion. Mr. Jaffe, you're here. Any questions?
Hey, Bill. I do have one very mundane question, which is set meetings, strategic execution. What's the T?
Team.
Team. Okay, that's it. Perfect.
Excuse me.
This is actually really useful. I mean, I guess the other term that a guy like Tom Peters would have used years ago is chunking and taking things apart. And I really like the way you link everything and you go backwards in time so that you have a really good chance of getting to where you need to do. And if you have issues that come up, you have the time and the ability to manage them.
Yes, and kind of a footnote there is the vast majority of my private clients are 7 to 9 figure businesses, and they have dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of employees, and they have many management people on our management team. What this tool allows is a couple of things. One, it allows the manager to be able to negotiate long-term goals with their employees, person to person to person, be able to then, by the way, curiously enough, I'm a fan of all kinds of business book others. To me, chunk up is going up and drill down is going down. That's my term. But
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So when I say chunk up, I mean, so chunk up would be to game plan to strategy to vision. That'd be chunking up. Drilling down is going from game plan to goals to commitments to action. So
what we did today was largely the drilling down.
yeah. So with the
Okay.
manager, so you can do this with individual people. And what that allows you as the manager is you don't have to get your hands into the day to day. A lot of managers do. They get involved in the day to day, and that basically paralyzes the employee because the employee is waiting for what to do today. Can you imagine trying to do what I just demonstrated for a team of 8 or 9 people? A lot of managers try, and that's why they don't perform well. So this is a combination of a personal tool, and it's a tool that can be used for every long-term goal for every one of a person's direct reports.
Yeah, I think it gives people the direct reports a lot of rope to do what they're supposed to do. If you have a concept of management by exception, it allows the manager to see the exceptions quickly and intervene and say, okay, do you need extra support on this? Do you need guidance on this, without having to roll up their sleeves and wade into it? It really puts the onus on the people who have made the commitments, and the managers just managing and probably guiding and saying, if you come back with 2 conclusions, let's talk about that. I think you should go this direction as opposed to that direction.
Right.
Thing.
That's very well. That's you sound like a guy that knows how to manage. That's beautiful. Any other questions? We'll cut loose the live stream.
No, I think I'm good so far. I really like this technique.
Okay, I'm going to stop not the recording. I'm going to stop.